Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the 4th Annual Panagora Pharma CX Tech Summit. And we are going to finish up the day with a data double feature here. First, a panel of data experts, and then a one-on-one discussion with another data expert from AbbVie immediately following this session. So do not tune out if you love data, because you will be able to get a double dose here in the 2 o'clock hour. So joining us on our panel of data experts is Anton Yarovoy from Novartis, Vijay from Eisai, and Jeremy Pincus from GSK. I'm going to ask these gentlemen to tell us a little bit about themselves and also offer a little bit of a disclaimer before we start digging into the proverbial data. Jeremy, say hi, tell us what you do.
Yeah, so thanks, Seth. So Jeremy Pincus, I head up a group within GSK called Digital Marketing Tech, and by its description, my team is accountable for our product engineering of our MarTech stack, supporting both our respiratory, general medicine, vaccines, HIV, and oncology businesses.
Any data generated from those?
Just a little bit across 75 countries.
Oh, that's it?
That's it. Disclaimer. So I'm in this weird room in my house right now today because today is the day the roofer decided to show up and put a brand new roof on my house. If you hear banging, I'm sorry.
That is a disclaimer, but not the one I was looking for. Did you want to separate your opinions and anything you say from your corporate responsibilities?
Absolutely. So all the opinions I'm going to provide are mine versus GSK's.
I got you. Vijay, say hi. Or Wilay, as your name says.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I am Vijay Iyengar. I lead up the strategic solutions area within Eisai for both sales and marketing across all the therapeutic areas that we work with, which is oncology, neurology, insomnia, epilepsy, and everything in between. I've been with Eisai for a little over a year. I'm a COVID hire, and I'm enjoying it so far.
Have you been to headquarters yet?
I haven't been out of my 4 walls yet, so no. I've been to the office maybe two and a half times. So no, I'm looking forward to
probably 2 times too many, right? So glad to have you with us. Anton, who are you?
Great. Did you want Vijay to do his statement?
Oh, yes. Disclaimer.
Obligatory disclaimer. Yes, everything that I say is my own opinion and not endorsed by my spouse and Eisai.
Okay.
Here, I'll start with the statement as well. Hi, I'm Anton Yarovoy. I am the Director of Precision Medicine from Novartis. My obligatory statement is the views that I'm about to share are my own and not affiliated with my company. I work on precision medicine within Novartis, which is a specialty division focused on identifying testing modalities that are for targeted therapies. So I work with a lot of testing partners and understanding how to test for genomic profiling.
Kind of a newer and sort of cutting edge usage of data than the way we think about it in the traditional sense. But since this is a customer experience summit, let's talk about customer experience. So, Jeremy, can customer experience be quantified using data?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we can define a set of lead and lag measures to understand how our customers are engaging with us. I mean, just a couple of examples that we're doing now. If you think about behavioral data, so data that we use to determine the stage of a customer journey, while we can all wait for IQVIA to provide us that data, whatever lag that is, 60, 90 days, depending on your contracts, you can use proxies, and we're starting to define a set of proxies that says, how do we actually know when a customer is engaging with us or maybe even prescribing? And sampling is a great example. We own our own sampling data. When someone's sampling, well, they probably are prescribing. So you can absolutely measure that customer journey from unaware to aware to prescribing to advocating using your own behavioral data in real time, actually.
And you mentioned prescribing, so looking at the data set from an HCP perspective, what about on the customer side?
Yeah, on the customer side, you'd have the same type of triggers and the same type of information. The classic example is copays. So we're all in the life sciences space. We know that we provide either coupons or copays. When those redemption cards come back, same thing again. We know a patient is at point on script because they've redeemed that coupon. So same types of proxies we can use in the data to measure the customer experience and the customer life cycle.
So Vijay, can CX be quantified using data? You're on mute.
Yep, thank you. Absolutely. What the industry has been doing so far is to utilize the age-old tried and trusted method of surveys in order to measure customer perception. These days, with the advent of the collection of data, at least here in the U.S., not so true in the EU market. We have access to unbelievable amounts of data at a granular level where we can throw in AI and ML modeling and start predicting their experience and once we start predicting it, we start architecting how that experience should look like across multiple channels and stitch a journey together. So the answer to your question is absolutely. And the tools have evolved.
And I think you brought up a good point about the collection of data via surveys. Now, a lot of times there's a lot of bias in surveys, or a lot of people think they're taking a test, so they're trying to give you the answer they think that they should give you. But with the ease of collection and sort of the granularity that follows that, can we trust surveys?
Not necessarily, because what one thing is a push versus other thing is a pull. So you're asking them for feedback, which could already be tainted and biased and pedantic in their approach, versus their natural behaviors lead to the collection of actual data, which gives us a lot more granular level of information to their behaviors and wants and needs.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, Anton, you told us a little bit about what you're doing in the precision medicine space. That may bear some additional exposition, because it took me 2 or 3 times talking to you to figure out exactly it is what you do. But then again, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. So therefore, can CX be quantified using data? And, how does that relate to, what you're up to?
Absolutely. To add to what Jeremy and Vijay had discussed, a lot of our data, we are pulling it from a lot of IQVIA data. You're pulling it from physician survey data, but when you can also look at how the physicians are testing their patients. So you can pull a lot of data from various CPT codes. You can pull data from laboratories, and there's a lot of organizations out there that work with that type of data to give you what their true prescribing habits are, true testing habits are, and give you a picture of what they're actually doing versus what they're telling you during the qualitative. And so it creates a really nice kind of complementary where you can see things that they've said in a survey situation where they felt they needed to give a particular answer because that's the answer they think we're expecting from them as an HCP professional, versus the types of answers that you're getting based on their genuine behavior and what they're doing in terms of scripts and things of that nature. And so the other perspective too is from those type of surveys is also interviewing different stakeholders within a particular location as well, because a perception of one stakeholder like a nurse may very differ from the perception of an oncologist, may differ very widely from a perception of a pathologist. And together that gives you a really nice quantitation of data that can paint you a better picture of what's happening.
I see. Interesting enough, I've probably asked that question 50 times over the course of a number of different panels, and not one person has said no. Interesting. So when we take a look at technology and data, how does the data allow brands to optimize CX? We talked about this a little bit before, or how does it power the technology in ways that we really haven't seen before? And again, we've talked a little bit about this, about what it could do. But for example, I know that Jeremy, you mentioned copays on the consumer side. So once you get a data point back that a copay card has been used. Now, does that trigger another set of customer experience tools or technologies from there?
Absolutely. So we're building and I'll talk both patient and HCP, but on the patient side, we're building fairly robust kind of 16 to 20 week campaigns that take customers from, again, unaware or non-prescribing, searching for a disease, searching for treatment, through actually prescribed to an adherence program. And all of those are set up through a workflow engine. I won't speak one of them, but one of them starts with a big A, the other one starts with a big S. And these products are being used right now to orchestrate these customer experiences. And the rules are based on data coming in and signals of the data to determine the next step in the customer journey. And we're doing the same thing on the HCP side, a little bit different on the HCP side. There, we're starting to build data products, and those data products are combining attitudinal data, behavioral data, and stages of the customer journey. And then we have various content set and determined based on a stage of, we know then what content to share with the customer to move them to the next stage of the customer journey. And all of that is built and orchestrated through workflow engine.
Gotcha. Vijay, technology, data, coming together, powering, optimizing the CX.
Absolutely. So no, I would say no. We just go with our gut feeling. We just don't do any of those things.
Finally, an honest man. We just.
No. So if you consider, just the rep channel, where we as pharma companies have predominantly put all our efforts and resources and tactics on, even that is changing, right? I mean, I'm kicking off a program which essentially the industry has termed with the next best action, but I like to stick to the biological aspects of it and call it the right next action. Even the fact that we send a rep to the healthcare professional is going to be driven by data that we've collected about the behavioral aspects of that particular healthcare provider. From a channel tactic perspective, we work with programmatic third-party channels who essentially drive, again, the right next action to that particular set of audiences and target segments. And all these things are obviously, fundamentally orchestrated through the tool that Jeremy mentioned. He happens to use the ANNS. We happen to use the site core side of it, and it's all orchestrated through that. And in the back end, we as a company collect awesome amounts of data across multiple channels. And it is incumbent on us how we digest that, curate that, and turn that data into action, to information, to insights, so that we can take action on these either patients or caregivers or healthcare professionals.
Anton, how's data powering technology to increase the CX in your world?
So to add to what the other speakers have said, it's also creating that level of segmentation and enhancement of the live experience. So one of the things that these smart engines do allow us to create is that not only does it allow for us to deliver digital content appropriately, but then based on their behavior, you can also instruct your field sales forces what optimal marketing resources are available to them at that point that would have the greatest impact, right? We create a lot of content, but a lot of times with the creation of a lot of content, there's also the creation of a lot of confusion sometimes, which pieces are appropriate, which stage are they appropriate. And so by segmenting your segments of HCPs and creating segments built on, around heavy prescribers, light prescribers, non-prescribers, it can also leverage a lot of that information for how to best do call planning and how to utilize resources around that to create that optimization.
So data can optimize the rep operation. It can optimize the rep HCP interaction, the HCP experience, patient HCP interaction, the patient experience. We have all the data, right? Everything should be running at 100%, right? Right? Everything should be optimized, right? Because we have the data to do it. Why not? Or is there any areas where, where we could improve in terms of whether it be data collection or the types of data that we receive or anything like that? Everything should be great. We should be at like 99.9% optimal customer experience, right? Jeremy, what do you think?
Well, I'll give you three names. Apple makes it difficult because Apple and what the Apple's trying to do. So they want to take the ability away for us to actually know who opens our email messages. So Apple making it difficult. Google making it difficult because they want to take all away the third-party cookies. So we actually can't do good programmatic, making it difficult. Probably have to start to log into every website going forward. And then finally, you take those two away, I think our own confliction around consent and how we gather consent and use consent to our power to drive multi-channel, omni-channel experiences. We lived in a world of sales and marketing. COVID has kind of brought sales and marketing together. And now we're thinking omni-channel and we're looking at our own data and going, we really don't have consent to be able to drive omni-channel.
Those are two big data companies, aren't they? You think that they would be working with us instead of against us? Vijay, where are we? Where could we improve, or what's missing? Why aren't we at 99.999% of experiential optimization?
Well, intentions are logical, but benefits are not automatic. Just to start off, we have all our organizations have tremendous amounts of resistance in trying to formulate a point of view, and that point of view changes almost as the flavor of the month as leadership changes. And even with limited data, we can derive a lot of benefits, but sometimes placing the ladder on the right wall is a challenge. The future should be, where we want to be, the utopia of this should be, holistic, it should be predictive, it should be very precise, it should be clearly tied to outcomes, right? Outcomes from a brand perspective, outcomes from a business perspective. But we're not there yet. Will we be ever there? Kudos that you gave 99.9%. I would rate it way shorter.
Those are the latest numbers that I got, 99.9%. So, but we're getting better. Anton, you could say, hey, we are. Well, you could say, hey,
well,
my brand, my organization's running at 99.99. We're good.
I think it's the human factor, right? So it's when we say artificial intelligence powers a lot of this, but there's always a little asterisk behind that, and that's the human factor. A lot of this data, even when it's quantitative data, it's always mixed with qualitative, interpretations of data as well, because we're basing it on just a few doctors sometimes, and so the behavior of the few doesn't represent the behavior of the many, right? And a lot of times that's where our data sources are. We never have depending on where you are, you don't always have access to 100% of the market. You might be basing all your strategies on 5% of the market data, and that's what causes those gaps and sometimes that misunderstanding of what's actually happening out there, because we're always extrapolating from a slice of life, not the full pizza.
So we can't get 99.9% optimization if we don't get 99.9% of the data, right? So we can always fall back on availability to say, like, hey, this is going to create some holes for us. I'm going to ask you two questions, and they're going to be specific, but you can't say the same thing, and you can't copy somebody else's answer, right? So who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Anton, what is your favorite data to work with? Like, what do you see the most impact? What type of data offers the most impact for what you're charged with doing?
So with the nature of what I do, I actually really like qualitative data, interview-based data initially, because I think listening to interviews and getting that type of information is insightful to what some of the HCP KOLs are actually thinking. But a lot of times when that data gets distilled out, it's not as clean, right? Like, because you haven't listened to the interview firsthand. And a lot of times it's being able to listen to some of those interviews that you get sometimes the biggest insights listening between the lines. So I do think that data does work for what I do.
And Jeremy, so again, we can phrase this question a number of different ways. Like what data is the most impactful for what you're doing, or what data could you not live without?
I'm going to go the opposite. I like quantitative data. And I like quantitative data in two ways. One is large, what we call core or mega segments. So really attitudinal, who you are, kind of your hearts and mind type data. Doesn't change very often, by the way. You don't need to refresh this data very often. People don't change if they're science led or led by peers, right? That's attitudinal, who you are and how you were raised. I love that data because that tells us who they are. And then I love the really micro data of actually the activity that happened, the event that happened. A rep met with the doctor. They shared this slide. Combining the two in real time and driving the right campaign and the right next message, that's when you drive CX. That's really powerful.
But by basically using all the data.
Basically.
We have the big data and the little data, and that's good. But again, that's on the quantitative side rather than the qualitative side. So yeah, that's true. Now, qualitative, quantitative, Vijay, they didn't leave you a choice. So
I know.
Like what type of data do you love working with? What type of data is the most impactful for what you guys are doing, and what data could you live without?
Well, one of the things that I love about primary market research data when we are actually speaking with focus groups and healthcare professionals is those unfiltered, opinions, which are very professional opinions on the disease state, on the patient base, on the product that we're trying to put in the marketplace. Sometimes they cover things that we as marketers and pharma professionals are not thinking. They cover social determinants of health. They cover access, and they cover a different set of data points that is super critical for us in order to message our brand appropriately to the right segment. I love that. One of the least favorable favorite data pieces for me is everything that I get from IQVIA. No, I'm just no, I don't have a least favorite data piece. I mean, I agree with Jeremy. I love the fact that at the micro level, we're able to capture thumbs up and thumbs down of the HCP actually reacting to a particular slide at the DSA level. So every data is good data.
Yeah, you're probably going to get some calls from your vendor reps after this, either that or some scotch. So this question is somewhat different, but having worked with data being a part of your lives or professional lives for X number of years, etc. What's one type of data that was sort of like a wow moment for you, where it was eye-opening? You were like, wow, we can actually capture this, or this data is incredible. I wish I had this 10 years ago, or, because we're evolving in the data collection and the things that we're taking a look at and things like that. But there's been several for me where I've been like, I didn't know they captured, I didn't know we could take a look at that. So I'm assuming that there had to be some type of an aha moment for you guys when you saw a piece of data where you were like, oh, so they, you guys can collect that? You have that? What was that like for you, Anton? Did you find one in your career where you were surprised in that fashion?
I feel like my career has been surprises of, wow, we can't collect that data. as I'm reflecting back, I feel like I've always worked in fields where the data was very soft and hard to obtain. So I feel like a lot of times, the data I work with has not been as stringent or quantifiable. I think one of the greatest data sources that I do like using is actually learning about your KOLs. So I think there is good data sources in terms of when they put together profiles on some of the top KOLs. So I know we're talking about customer experience, but as we interact with these KOLs and want to understand where they're coming from, I feel like one of the platforms is that LinkedIn offers for professional marketers is that type of data collection where you can get really great insights on your KOLs and HCPs in terms of their publication histories and things like that. I think that's a great data source for every marketing manager.
Yeah, you had mentioned before, like you're using lab data or diagnostic data. 10 years ago, that really wasn't around.
Mm-hmm.
20 years ago when I was a rep, that wasn't around either, where you could get a trigger by saying, oh, this physician tested for this, go see him and talk to him about, this. I think that was, for at least me, one of the aha moments, saying like, wow, we can actually capture this and add it to a patient's, longitudinal profile, which is an aha moment for me. Vijay, any data that you were surprised or shocked or pleased that they could collect?
Every data piece that EU does not let us collect and touch, and the corresponding ability for us in the US to take a look at the data wows me every day. I mean, here I have access to, the prescriber level data, maybe on the street that he is practicing in. There, I can only get access to brick level data. The amount of data that we have here and the access is just unbelievable. But having said that, one of the things that wowed me in the past was I was leading an allergy franchise at that time, and our ability to kind of take the CDC and the pollen content and stuff like that and merge it with certain tactical data that we capture at the sales level, that kind of blew me off and said, oh my God, so we are able to better position our allergy product based on the time of the year and the pollen count or the content within that territory. That just blew me off. We developed some early warning systems and all those things based off of that.
No, and that's pretty cool. One of our earlier speakers on a panel mentioned the same thing with barometric pressure and migraine. So that's sort of a customer experience automation triggered by data, which is neat. But yeah, I mean, just being able to do that and combine those two must have been pretty cool, at least at the time. Jeremy, what data wows you?
Well, it's actually a recent wow. It's probably even in the last 90 days. There's this data you can get from a company called AIMXR data. You guys can Google it, AIMXR data. And it's data that allows you to understand at an MPI level what sites our customers are actually browsing for. And you can bring that data into your marketing campaigns to start an acquisition strategy. So imagine that you're launching a product and there's another competitor out there. You can find out at an MPI level what customers are actually viewing content on that competitor and kick off a campaign. And I was like, wow, I can see that at an individual customer, and we're starting to experiment around that. I was really, I think that's when my mind blew up a little bit more around how much tagging of content is out there in customers and big data that you can tap into to actually use to begin marketing campaigns.
Well, I mean, Google Analytics, right? Can do that.
No, we can't.
No, only if you own the site.
Only on your own site. These are on other people's sites.
Yes,
only
only,
other people's site.
Only on your own site.
Or if you own
others.
Google, right? Because they're going to choke all the data away from us anyway, as it were. So no, that's very interesting, and you could actually be able to highly target and customize, an exposure plan for an individual target HCP, if that is the case. Going from there. So, as we are discussing data, and we've talked about this a little bit earlier with triggering CX automation, and Vijay gave a great example of looking at the weather conditions triggering reps, and Jeremy gave an example of copay card triggering a sequence of actions. Anton's precision medicine is triggered by particular testing and testing for particular gene mutations. So a lot of triggers and a lot of automation here as we can use data. But what are some other examples that you've seen or experienced with pharma creating or pharma partners creating data products that drive CX automation? So we want to try to make this experience frictionless, but also we try to want the customer to think as little as possible about this, right? Because if we involve their choice, they'll probably choose incorrectly. So any other types of examples with CX automation that's triggered or driven automatically by data.
I mean, one of the things we've never been able to do is do true programmatic at a branded level across Europe and other countries because of the issue with deterministic versus probabilistic. Right? There's always this idea that it could be a little bit probabilistic. You could find 3-4% in your match rates that are not doctors, and now you've shown an ad. And there are some new DMPs popping up across Europe, which are really interesting, where they're starting to create inventories with endemic sites. And they're allowing you to do programmatic into these endemic sites. And then the endemic publisher is actually then controlling the authentication. So you know that you're actually targeting advertising to the customers. That's kind of happened a little bit in the US on WebMD and Sermo and things like that, but never really in Europe. So I think this is kind of the next frontier if we think beyond US, we think about Europe, and we think about other channels, especially media.
Anton?
I mean, I think some of the things that have been done, it's geofencing. I think with especially during COVID, geofencing has been a big tool because it allows for a lot of site-specific marketing and NPP delivery in those locations. So the geofencing aspect and being able to take things to a 3-digit zip code, or kind of isolating certain areas.
Am I coming? Okay, it's probably Anton.
Or
Yes, well,
specific targeted.
Anton, you're frozen.
Is there a queue for the movie credits, Frozen?
We might have to. I don't know why we've gotten captured by aliens. It has happened before, and with Anton. So we can go ahead. You want to just wrap us up here, Vijay, with some thoughts about automation or current or future products that are.
Well, one of the things that I recollect from a previous launch was in China. We actually had an integration with one of the campaign management product tools out there, and we were trying to identify the most visited channel or the platform. We were very surprised that WeChat, which is a platform in itself similar to WhatsApp here, had so much. The healthcare providers were on that channel all the time, and the click to mortar, right? I mean, the ability for the healthcare professional to get a message, and the ability for the patient to reach out to that healthcare professional on that platform, and then correspondingly set up an appointment to go visit that doctor at his or her location. That just blew my mind. It was phenomenal. I mean, I think the more entrenched our tools will be, the more better we'll get at messaging our brands.
Excellent. So we are at the end of our time for this panel. Anton's comments will probably be appearing on the director's cut when we release this DVD. Some of the lost content or things that collectors will be after once we manage to get this into portable format. So apologize to you, Anton, for your technical difficulties, but I want to thank everybody else for really giving us a great discussion here with a lot of detail and a lot of opinions, which is what we like to have here at Panagora. So when we look at contacting any of you guys, if anybody has any questions, we did have some questions come here very, very late. We can make sure that you get your questions answered, audience members, and move forward from there. So thank you very, very much. Join us for our closing event, which is a conversation with Michael Kersner from AbbVie about CX and data architecture, which does not sound exciting, but I promise you it is actually pretty cool. So hop on back to the lobby, hop into that session, and we will see you over there. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and I will talk to you guys soon.
Nice meeting